What's that? Playoffs? Don't talk about it. Playoffs? You kidding me? Playoffs? I just hope we can win a game.
AFC South, AFC South, AFC. Are you ready for the fight? Nighty night, lights out, no Tyson. About to be the clash of the Titans. Strike like a lightning bolt. You feel the ground pounding, that might be the coast. Quick like a joke, like to hit when provoked. Don't you doubt that. That's a Jaguar to a house cat. That's an outcast to a whole squadron. If you talking Houston, then we've got a problem. You'll probably get the horns if you mess with the cattle. Sit back in your saddle and get ready for the fan battle.
And welcome back to the AFC South Fan Battle, where we're covering everything AFC South and making sure that we cover all the NFL stuff. You hear a little bit of trash talk here and there, but you know what? We're going to be able to make sure that we get to everything today. Before we go any further, please make sure that you're going to www.fanbattlesports.com. Get all your AFC South fix, whether it be articles, past episodes of the shows of any of the four teams in the AFC South. Everything's on there. Remember, go to www.fanbattlesports.com. And yeah, so we'll be able to just go ahead and cover everything. And as we can see, we do have a special guest with us today. And, you know, we're just going to go ahead and just let him introduce himself. After we go ahead and just get you reacquainted with the four people. Of course, I'm going to be covering the Colts tonight. My name is Chris Jackson. Covering the Texans, we do have Matt Briggs.
What up?
Covering the Jags, we have Ms. Nika. Welcome back.
Hi.
All right. And then we have covering the Titans, we do have Trey. Tighten up. Whatever that means.
I know.
There we yeah, okay, sure. All right, and then yes. And so we have with us a very special guest this evening. And you know, without further ado, we're just going to go ahead and just get right into it. We have Dallas Clark with us this evening. Dallas, welcome.
Oh man, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be here. Thank y'all so much. I watch all the time, and it's an absolute pleasure to be here. My name is Dallas Clark. I'm the host of the Huddle Chat Sports Network. Mostly we do a lot of fantasy football conversations, but I love talking to AFC South. I love talking that smack with all my AFC South people, all my Colts fans, anybody I can find. I live out in Colorado, so I don't get to talk AFC South as much with my neighbors and people at the store as much as I'd like. So I love every opportunity I get to be here in places like this. So thank y'all so much for the opportunity.
Absolutely. Hey, welcome. Thank you for coming on. As also a Colts fan who's displaced, currently living in Kansas City. Yeah, so I get it. I get it. So yeah, and I'm in the middle of Chiefs country. So
yeah.
Yeah. But in the meantime, so you know what, Dallas, like I said, we know that like with you covering fantasy, you have to look into so many different aspects of different teams, right? So what we're gonna go ahead and just ask you to do is just to go ahead and, you know, just talk about like the state of each team that you feel. It's just like whether you feel like offensively they're good, defensively they're not, defensively they're good, offensively they're not. Give us a little bit of an overview of what you think for each one of the individual teams in the AFC South, and we'll start with Miss Nika. We'll start with Miss Nika's Jags.
Oh man, absolutely. So first things first, I think right now as an AFC South fan, I think we can all agree now is the best time to be an AFC South fan. I mean, for so long there has been one or maybe two teams competing for the top, but the AFC South has been a very quiet division for a very long time. So right now, being an AFC South fan with all the attention on the Jags, all the attention coming to the Texans being considered one of the most powerful teams in the NFL right now, and all the attention on the Colts, even the Titans with Mr. Mayo and Will Levis coming out, it's a great time to be an AFC South fan. But Ms. Nika, talking about your Jaguars right now, as a Jaguars fan, my biggest concern is there's not much changing to give me cause to think of much more positive production on the fantasy football side for when it comes to Trevor Lawrence, when it comes to the Travis Etienne's. You've lost Calvin Ridley. I mean, the Jaguars are still a very powerful team, a very high contending team, especially on the offensive side of the ball. But I feel like it's hard to deny the losses the Jaguars have had over the past couple of years. I think Trevor Lawrence is he has a great floor. He's a great backup option. But I don't feel comfortable starting Trevor Lawrence week 1 going into the season. When you look at how the Jaguars roster is composed, just with the offensive playmakers, the difference makers on that roster, I do like the Jaguars. There's a couple of different players that I'd be willing to take. Like I said, Travis Etienne is probably one of my top 12 running backs right now. I think the Jaguars are probably going to be definitely competing with the Indianapolis Colts when it comes to that wild card playoff spot here at the end of the year, especially on the offensive side of the ball. It all just is a matter of health, as we've all seen these last few years.
Fantastic. Thank you for that. And Nika, I know that you might feel a little bit more strongly than he does about your team, but do you feel like he was more so spot on, or?
Yeah, it's more like a big question mark with the turnover of the wide receiving corps. You still have Christian, who, when he went out, that was Trevor's safety net. I mean, he did get Ridley paid, but so Ridley's gone and Zay Jones gone. So now you have Gabe Davis, who was solid in Buffalo, and now you have the rookie Brian Thomas coming in, and you have Ingram. And you have Travis Etienne, and that's it. Because I don't trust Tanks Bigsby, Dearness Johnson, all those running backs behind them. That is a spot that is not solid at all. And I think they run Etienne into the ground too much. And tight end is Evan Ingram, then everyone else, because Britton Strange was a second round pick that didn't do too much. And then you have Luke Farrell still hanging in on he was I think 145th because I called his name. And these other guys, and Josh Peterson, Peterson's son is on the roster as well, taking up a spot. He's just a cap body. So it's just a lot of question marks. And the biggest one is the offensive line, which the only change they made was the center. I understand he is a vet. That is just a Band-Aid. They're still going to need a better line to protect Trevor because he got demolished at the end of the season.
Yeah. All right. And so you mentioned Mayo. Tell us your thoughts on the Titans.
So with the Tennessee Titans, I feel like, especially on a fantasy football standpoint, of course, I was just talking with my friend the other day, going in when everybody's 0-0. It's probably one of my favorite times of the year. It's really when you get that any given Sunday type of feel. The Titans could mess around and be one of the top teams in the AFC. We don't know that at the current moment. But right now on a fantasy football aspect, when you're looking at the Titans, I feel like you have a lot of hope. You're looking at people like Will Levis. You're not drafting Will Levis as a starting quarterback, but if you do draft Will Levis, you're looking at Will Levis being somebody you hope things look as good or as decent as they did last year when he did get that starting role with the Tennessee Titans. And the numbers he was putting up, he was a top 15 quarterback through the majority of the time that he was a starting NFL quarterback through the fantasy football aspect. But even with like Tony Pollard, their new acquisition, Tony Pollard had a really a hyper productive year in 2022, and then he had an underproductive year in 2023 when he had the entire backfield. But you do still have Tyjae Spears with the Tennessee Titans. So I feel like anybody you take from Tennessee right now, from their running back room, their quarterback room, their wide receiver room, even their defense, you're hoping a lot for the Tennessee Titans right now. Not enough giving you confidence in taking those Tennessee Titans players. Those are those high risk, high reward players that you're grabbing. And as a Tennessee Titans fan, I would hate to be in that role. I've been in that role as pretty much every one of us have been in this AFC South conversation tonight. We've all been in that role where we have a lot of hope, but not enough on paper to give us the confidence that we can go down there and win when the money's on the line, which is the same thing that you feel about Tennessee Titans players in your fantasy football lineup right now.
Okay. All right. And Trey, I know that you know what, Trey, because we are involved in many group chats where you may say otherwise, but it's just like, do you feel like there's accuracy to what he's saying, or how do you feel in regards to what he said regarding the state of the team? Because like I said, Titans fans seems like they're like
one way or another.
Yeah. No, what he said is very fair. That's very fair. I mean, I I agree with that because we got a lot of like change around going on. So
Hmm.
it's it's kind of a more of like we trying to see if this gonna work or what's gonna work. So I agree with that. So I mean, yeah, I can dig that. But like you said though, it started with Levis though. At the end of the day,
Gotcha. And I think it's and this is to both Dallas and Trey's point. Levis I think Levis is probably like the biggest question mark right now, because of the fact that you got to see him in 8 games last season. And it's just like, and this isn't necessarily a dig, but this is more so, I think the biggest crowning achievement was that first game versus the Falcons. And it's just like the Falcon, he had like, I think he completed, I think he was well over, I think 70% for that game. He had 4 TDs, and then the next 2 games he gets no TDs and an interception each game. And so it's like, it's a rookie campaign, but it's also a rookie campaign in which now this is a completely different team. Not well, it's a completely different team in terms of there being a new head coach, in terms of there being new players. You don't have Derrick Henry back there, so you're not just gonna, just go and ground and pound with him the whole game. So I think when it comes down to what this team does, like, are there what is the expectation for Will Levis? And this is
so
this could be for both Dallas and Trey. Like, what is the expectation for Will Levis this year? Is it for him to just go and just, sky's the limit and then he's just gonna go balls to the wall, or is it just like be consistent? Like, what is it that fans are expecting from him?
Go ahead, Trey.
me, okay, I got you. Me, I'm expecting him. I want to see is he our franchise guy. So I see how we building around him, the offensive line, our weapons. I want to see is he our guy. So that's what I want to. I'm looking at. But so I feel like you feel me. Like we got a offensive minded a coach. So I feel like let's put the ball in Levis' hand and see if he's that guy. If not, I mean, if not, then we probably got to draft another a quarterback.
Yeah.
That's where I'm at. But I'm riding with him though. I'm excited. I'm excited of what I've seen. So far. I mean, it's some stuff we can be I better at. But I feel like last year, the coaching, all that matters. So I feel like this year, it's gonna be different. Like for sure though.
Yeah. Okay. All right. And what about you, Dallas?
Man, honestly, I feel like Will Levis, he has fairly similar expectations as to what Texans fans felt about CJ Stroud before week 1 last year. Going into last season, CJ Stroud wasn't expected to be what CJ Stroud is right now. CJ Stroud was just expected to be better than what the Texans have experienced. Unfortunately for CJ Stroud, they had a quick flash with Deshaun Watson where they had a phase of being an elite tier team with an elite quarterback. So all you really need to be as Will Levis, you're expecting, as Garrett, I believe, said in the comments, you're expecting consistency. The Titans are looking for something they can build off of. Outside of when they first received Ryan Tannehill in that trade, you never saw anything off Ryan Tannehill you could really build off of as far as the future. So as far as the Titans, no matter what Tony Pollard does, no matter what Tyjae Spears does, no matter what the defense does, if Will Levis, just like Colts fans are hoping right now, Anthony Richardson only played 4 games. If you can give us consistency and something we can build off of and confidence that we won't lose games because of this guy in the future, then that's all you really need from Will Levis right now.
Yep.
Can I say something real quick about the Titans? Look, I don't think it's really Will Levis's expectation. Is more so of the offensive line. Like they got the weapons, they got the pieces they need. Now he just needs to be protected because we can all say that he did have some flash in the pans of being a good quarterback, but he had no time to throw the ball.
Yeah, hey, I'm talking about it was like down, said Hood, like he getting smacked, like it's so hard. Like you feel me? Like everybody, I don't think everybody know that, but I mean, like it was one of it's probably the worst line. Like he didn't have no damn time at all.
And
Yeah,
they
there
have
isn't a good enough offensive line and good enough playmakers around Will Levis to expect Will Levis to lead the Titans to the playoffs. If the Titans win 8 games this season, as a Titans fan, I'm happy. Of course,
Yeah.
I could expect more, but as long as the Titans don't do worse or the same as they did last year, as a Titans fan, you can just expect to be better. That's all you can really hope for.
Fact.
Yeah,
Fact.
and I think, and I don't know if I can speak for all Titans fans, but I know I think the biggest thing with them also is um, Callahan, coached Joe Burrow and the Bengals, and we know that statistically for a while there, their O line was just putrid. I mean, Joe Burrow was getting demolished. I think what was it against the Titans in that playoff
And
game?
9
Joe
sacks.
Burrow
Yeah,
got
9
sacked
sacks.
9 times
Yeah.
and they still ended up winning it. So I think like low key and Trey, you can tell me if you agree. Titans fans kind of have an expectation that even if the line isn't that good, Callahan can scheme up an offensive scheme that will be able to make sure that it accounts for not necessarily having the time to be able to have a play develop as opposed to just kind of getting it out quick strike and making sure that it's a quick release, no pun intended,
Yeah.
because we all know what Will Levis has done with quick release recently. But yeah, we definitely not going to go into that right there. So yeah,
Chill
we're
out,
just,
man.
quick release
Nah.
Levis. I mean, it just,
I definitely agree because like we ain't never seen the Titans go like a quick passing game, like a 1-2-3 drop, like a backfield boom. So I feel like we got a running backs. They coming out, so we drop something off. Like it's gonna be different. So I mean,
Yeah.
it's counters around the pass rush, but like last year, like the way that the Titans like they played, it was like it's D Henry or play action. Everybody they knew that. So it was kind of like it's one dimensional.
yeah,
Well, and also one thing that Callahan never had in Cincinnati was his dad. His dad had his whole coaching career. His dad has never had an offensive line that was not in the top 5. So him as an offensive line coach just automatically improves the Titans' offensive line. So it's going to be, look, the AFC South is not the laughing stock it was once. It is going to be brutal. Next year is coming.
oh yeah, absolutely.
I
I
think
think that,
we're all gonna beat up on each other.
Oh,
yeah.
absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah, so moving on, and it's funny you say that because now we are going to have the Texans, and we know that the Texans, of course, coming off of winning the AFC South, basically just having to or going from a team that had a very low expectation of anything to just going and winning the division. I mean, CJ Stroud, and I'm gonna kind of flip this a little bit. Is there pressure now on CJ Stroud to like do more than what he did last year? Just seeing exactly not only how good he was, but how he was able to, I'm going to say, over excel in a way.
Well, I don't necessarily think that there's more pressure on him to do more. But I think that, I mean, kind of when you look at like Aaron Rodgers, when Aaron Rodgers has a bad season, we have to say, compared to Aaron Rodgers' expectations, because Aaron Rodgers on his worst season is having a better season than half of the quarterbacks in the league.
Yeah.
So I don't think you can really expect CJ Stroud to do more than the record-breaking efficiency that he had last year as a rookie, and all the records and how great CJ Stroud performed. You hear of the sophomore slump. As long as CJ Stroud doesn't have a visible dip that you can really notice in his production, in his gameplay, and he can roll with the punches as we kind of expect from CJ Stroud, I don't think there's much pressure on him to do more per se. But to do what he's already done, he has already set the bar. So for CJ Stroud to do much more than a minuscule amount than he did last season, I think it's hard for CJ Stroud to do more. Just like Garrett's saying, it's going to be hard for CJ to do more than he did last season because he was so record-breakingly efficient and so good at quarterback. CJ just has to stay CJ, and a Texans fan is happy.
Yeah, I think you're right. Like he just got to do what he's been doing, right? And I think the smart move about Nick Caserio is that he got plans A, B, C, and D. Because last year the Texans were destroyed by injuries. Nico Collins was out for a couple games. Tank Dell missed half the season. Our Titus Howard, the whole offensive line never started the whole season at all. But now he got guys that he can plug and play. He went out and got Stephon Diggs, who is a top 10 receiver easily. You got guys that can help him be better without him doing anything. Just him being himself. He don't have to rely on Robert Woods, going out there with a walker and expecting him to catch for 100 yards. You're not expecting Noah Brown. Like, you got 3 number ones on the offense. And then Dalton Schultz. Like, you just got – all CJ got to do is be CJ. That's all he has to do.
See, and that's what I was saying a couple weeks ago when I was on the other AFC South podcast, is that I think the difference between this CJ Stroud Texans team that we've seen and any other team that we've seen outside of the Peyton Manning Indianapolis Colts, and even with the Peyton Manning Indianapolis Colts, they relied on Peyton Manning. If Peyton Manning at any point was to go out of that game, the Colts, they were screwed. They were a 3-13 team the season that Peyton Manning went out. But when you're looking at the Texans right now, I think this might be the scariest team altogether that the AFC South has seen in at least a very long time. When you look at the Jaguars, when Blake Bortles first came on the scene, they made the playoffs their first season. Everything was on Blake Bortles. You saw how outside of the box Leonard Fournette got, how they lost a lot of their weapons. Even the Deshaun Watson Texans team that we've seen in the more recent history, they have the pieces, but as soon as you remove those pieces and there are a couple of problems introduce themselves, the whole team falls to pieces. But this Texans team right now, I'd be willing to bet CJ Stroud could miss 4 to 6 games next week or next season, and the Houston Texans would still be in good position to make the NFL playoffs this year.
I agree.
The Texans are just too complete of a team right now. Offensive line, weapons around CJ Stroud.
On both sides of the ball.
Yeah, man. And you have most of your young players, Nico Collins, Tank Dell. You have a lot of players on rookie contracts. And then you have a lot of players like the ones you acquired this year, the Stephon Diggses, the Joe Mixons, that are on prove-it contracts. So nowhere really when you look at the Texans roster are they overpaying for anybody that they have on their roster. Everybody's either trying to earn their contract or earn their right to say that they deserve to still be a top player as far as Joe Mixon or Stephon Diggs. So the Texans right now, I'm not going to lie to you, I've been more afraid of the Texans coming into this 2024 NFL season than I've been of any other AFC South team as a Colts fan who's ran the division for most of my life.
Look, I'm not going to say it, but I'm going to say it. You're my favorite guest we had on so far. I'm just going to say that.
That's just the Homer and Matt talking. That's just the Homer and Matt talking. but then speaking, and so now speaking of, because we, of course, and I think somebody put it in the chat, and I think it was Garrett Holloman says, I want to know what everyone expects of Richardson and Indy. Now, of course, 4 games, not even full games, but just 4 games played in for Anthony Richardson. So, of course, and of course, with any fan, there's going to be those people that are just like, yeah, he's going to go off and, he's going to do all this, whatever. But the thing is, there's a certain pocket that are just like, listen, just want him to play a full season and then see where he goes from there. He showed some flashes last year. What is your individual, I'm going to say, expectation as opposed to what you think that he'll be able to do?
Oh, man, I love that question, actually, because it's one that I've been trying to preach to my friends. But as a Colts fan around a bunch of Broncos fans and Bears fans, everybody just thinks I'm at the party drunk talking around the beer pong table or something. But as a Colts fan, even we were talking about Will Levis earlier. He played 8 games last season. Anthony Richardson played 4 games and got hurt in 2 of the 4 games he played in last season. It's hard to expect much more from Anthony Richardson than you expected coming in week 1 of 2023. You're looking at Anthony Richardson. What I expect from Anthony Richardson is that he learned his lesson last year and plays a little bit safer. with the mind of the Colts fans and in the back of his mind, the heart of the Colts fans on his shoulder pads. He hands that ball to the weapons around him. Jonathan Taylor, Michael Pittman. He doesn't need to do it all on his own. What we saw from Anthony Richardson last year, most of his flashes came running the ball. And as far as that goes, that's what really got Anthony Richardson hurt in both of the games that he played. I would like the expectation to be that Anthony Richardson makes a full 16 games, that Anthony Richardson has adapted his play style just enough to fit in the NFL. Just like Lamar Jackson had to do. Lamar Jackson is still Lamar Jackson. Jalen Hurts can still do Jalen Hurts. But Marcus Mariota, Tim Tebow, the quarterbacks that weren't able to adapt their running style to also fit into a passing NFL offense, which, as we know, Chris, the Indianapolis Colts have been a passing offense for the last 30 years. We do have Jonathan Taylor, one of the best running backs in at least the AFC. We have been known to be a running team over the past few years, but Anthony Richardson has the third best offensive line right now, according to Pro Football Focus, a top 4 fantasy football running back going into the year. Michael Pittman just re-signed. You got the new wide receiver that we drafted, Josh Downs. He has no real excuse to have to do everything on his own. Yeah. So if Anthony Richardson can just trust the players around him and stay healthy, Anthony Richardson playing a full 16 games is really the only expectation I can have, and be as good as Carson Wentz was when we were the team that nobody wanted to see in the playoffs.
Yeah, absolutely. And somebody addressed it, and I'm going to ask too. We're not going to just skim past this. The secondary for this team, because like I said, you get Latu defensively. That I think that shores up the D line, but it may potentially help the secondary. But the secondary right now, to me personally, it still needs help.
Oh yeah.
And what say you in regards to that?
So that's definitely going to be the glaring problem, and not many teams really can say that they're hole free, especially when you're looking at the teams that are in the playoffs. The problem with the Indianapolis Colts, and it has been the secondary and the pass rushing. And like you said, we got Latu. So we addressed the pass rushing, but there's no denying. Kenny Moore needs help. He might be the best slot cornerback in the NFL, but your local high school team could pass for 300 passing yards against the Indianapolis Colts right now. The secondary is just questionable. We're trusting the process right now with our younger players. When you're looking at the Juju Brents, when you're looking at the Isaiah Rodgers, a lot of young men that have been going through injuries and are just in their first and second, maybe third year in the NFL. So we have a lot of young, unexperienced players in our secondary that have been dealing with injury. So hopefully, in a perfect world, the Indianapolis Colts go healthy the entire year. And I'm sure every team, I'm sure Miss Nika, I'm sure Chef Briggs, I'm sure Tighten Up, we're all hoping that everybody stays healthy. But the NFL is anything but perfect. So when you're looking at the Indianapolis Colts, and that's what gives you cause to be excited about as a Colts fan, is Anthony Richardson gives us that ability to win those shootouts. When you look at the amount of times we've beaten the Kansas City Chiefs are still yet to beat the Indianapolis Colts in Patrick Mahomes' career. It's not because we've been a great team. We've just gotten lucky. I definitely agree with that. But I think Anthony Richardson gives you that confidence that we haven't had in Carson Wentz, in Gardner Minshew, in Jacoby Brissett, that he can go down there when the game is on the line, down 6 points. Can Anthony Richardson go on this game-winning drive in 2 minutes? I think he can do it, whether it's on the legs, whether it's with that extreme throwing power. I think that Anthony Richardson can keep us in the game. Now, hopefully, our pass rushing and our linebacker core can make up for our secondary, but there's going to be no denying that the Indianapolis Colts need help. And I mean, I'm just saying, Justin Simmons is still sitting there from Denver. Would be a great addition. You got Diggs from Seattle still sitting out there. There are still options for the Colts. We aren't optionless. It's not like the Colts have no choice but to be the worst secondary in the NFL. We have choices. We have money. It's on the Indianapolis Colts to make the changes they need to make. But I think the Colts are one addition in the secondary from being a real competitive team that nobody wants to see on their schedule.
I hate to burst your bubble. You know, you said you were scared of the Texans, but the rumors are Justin Simmons are in talk with the Texans. They're coming.
Us too. It's the same rumor.
Man, Justin Simmons been talking to everybody, man. My mom texted me this morning and said Justin Simmons was in her DMs. So Justin Simmons is playing the game. We'll have to see. I think we're gonna need one big injury in the NFL. He's one of those players that he knows his worth. He's not going to take anybody that's trying to lowball him. He's going to wait for that one big injury to Diggs on the Cowboys or somebody that really needs to add that person to keep them from dipping.
Gotcha.
Yeah. And I'm fair. That's fine by me with all of that. So do appreciate that. Now, burning question: what will be the order of the AFC South with the record for each individual team?
So I think right now, the Texans. You're looking at the Texans being the number one team in the AFC South. I mean, you're looking at their wide receiver room, their running back room, their defense, their quarterback, their coach. I mean, the Texans on all three phases of the ball in all 53 positions of their active roster. That you can't mess with the Texans right now in the AFC South. So I think they're going to be the winning team. I think the Texans, as a Texans fan, I'm expecting more than 10 wins. And less than 10 wins is a failure to me as a Texans fan. I think when you're looking at Vegas, I think they're looking at maybe 11 wins right now on the money line. Like when you're looking at the over-under on their wins this year, I think Texans obviously go first. I think Jaguars and Colts compete for that second spot, and that second spot is going to be a wild card spot. I think it really comes down to the one-on-one matchups. Do the Texans beat the Colts? Or, I mean, do the Jaguars beat the Colts? Do the Colts beat the Jaguars? That's really going to be the determining factor on which team makes the playoffs and hits that second spot. But, of course, as a Colts fan, I have to have the hope and have to think that we're going to have a little bit more. Because like I said at the beginning when I was talking to Ms. Nika, when we were talking to fantasy, I haven't seen enough from the Jaguars in the offseason to see improvement. The Jaguars aren't a bad team. I see a lot of AFC South people talking the Jaguars down as if they're a trash team. They're not at all. The Jaguars just haven't shown you enough, just like the Colts haven't shown you enough to say they're better than the Texans. They're the best team in that division. At the end of the day, nobody cares about who comes in second, third, and fourth. It's all about who wins the division unless you make that wild card spot. So I think at the end of the day, we're going to be competing. I believe we do have the Jaguars and Colts do have a late season game. And I think that's going to be kind of the determining factor on who makes that playoffs and who makes that second spot. But like I said, I think we're going Texans to win with no less than 10 wins this season. I got the Colts winning, and I'm hoping for 10 wins and we make that wild card spot. I think the Jaguars win no less than 9 games this season. The Jaguars aren't a bad team, like I've said. They just have some holes that they need to fill and some improvement, and some of that could be just in trusting the process. And unfortunately, the Titans fall at the bottom, but not saying that the Titans are a bad team, just with the amount of holes they have and the direction that the rest of the AFC South is going in. The Titans are the most questionable team. Now, everything could completely turn around those first 6 weeks with Will Levis just performing absolutely amazingly. Nobody expected CJ to make the Texans the best team in the AFC South last year. So Will Levis could do the same thing. But I think realistically, on paper, you're looking at Texans number 1 with no less than 12, Colts at number 2 at no less than 10, Jaguars at number 3 with no less than 9. And I think the Titans win at least 6 games this year. But as an AFC South fan, the more they lose, the better for me.
And let me ask you this. What holes you see in the Titans?
Right now, the holes I see with the Titans is mostly in the wide receiver room, especially after losing A.J. Brown. I know you got Chigo Okonkwo at the tight end position, but kind of like we were talking about the Texans earlier, now adding Stephon Diggs, it's great. But at the beginning of the year, nobody knew Nico Collins was going to be who Nico Collins is. Nobody was expecting Tank Dell to be a top 50 wide receiver. So right now you have a lot of unproven commodities in the Tennessee Titans, along with Tony Pollard, who when Tony Pollard finally got the premier role in the Dallas Cowboys offense, he wasn't able to prove it. So I think basically what the Titans, the holes are in the unproven commodities, just like with the Colts secondary. Trusting the process of the Titans fan may work out, and we'll see how we look, midway through the season. Like I said, I'm not saying the Titans are bad or they're going to be one of the worst in the NFL, but the Texans are a powerhouse. And I think the Colts and Jaguars definitely, and I'm not saying the Titans are far out of that conversation, but I think the Titans right now, the Colts are a close second worst wide receiver core, but Will Levis can't do much with the weapons and the offensive line around him.
I want to say our wide receiver core got holes in it, though. I feel like we upgraded our wide receiver core.
I mean, I don't. I'm thinking if we're
I'd say as of right now, I think we have probably. I'm gonna give it the Texans the first just because Diggs, but the Titans got our RC core is second best in our division.
I don't. So for me, if I'm being completely real, I don't think so. Because the thing is, it's just like because the thing is, okay, you have D Hop. D Hop's proven, hands down, no matter what. For me, Ridley is living off the reputation that he built by being wide receiver 2 to Julio. So the thing is, for me, it's just like, yeah, he
really
had
got a baller though.
really. No, but the thing is, but that's the thing. Like, I'm not saying anything now about Ridley as a Titan that I wasn't saying about Ridley as a Jaguar last year. So for me, if I'm seeing Ridley, now the thing is, once again, he's back in the wide receiver 2 spot. That's fine. But the thing is, now it's just like he's going to be in another offense once again, where I mean, we've seen exactly how they're doing. We see the footwork on the sideline like we did when he was in Jacksonville last year. Like we're seeing a lot of the same things, and it has to translate. Now, it's not to say, because he did go for 1,000 yards last year. So
yeah,
hands down, that absolutely. But the thing is, it's how he's going to be able to operate in this system, even given the fact, and I don't think there's I don't think there's an issue with him potentially being able to build chemistry with Will Levis, but it's also going to be how he's going to fit into that. And to me, Tyler Boyd doesn't really move the needle when it comes to wide receiver, because he's a wide receiver who has consistently over his career been a guy who's been very, very similar to what you saw in terms of just like a Christian Kirk. But the problem is that he had the opportunity to be wide receiver 1 when he was in Cincinnati, and he wasn't able to really live up to that expectation. They went and got Jamar Chase and T. Higgins, and he got kicked down to wide receiver 3 when he was a wide receiver 1 previously.
Well, that's cool. You go ahead.
Well, I can say, and the key point, like Miss Nika can tell you personally, Calvin Ridley drops the ball in crucial points. In the end zone, third down, he drops the ball a lot. And also, Tyler Boyd, he gave the Texans not the game once, but twice. He dropped the ball in the end zone twice. That's the problem with these receivers, is they drop the ball in crucial
They don't
points.
drop the ball a lot, though. It's not like a lot, though.
But see, so here's my thing, right? Check it out. As far as like on a fantasy football aspect,
wide receivers, we've had a lot of drops. He had the most drops.
But see, like as far as like on like a fantasy football aspect, we all know in the AFC South what DeAndre Hopkins can be. But since DeAndre Hopkins went to the Arizona Cardinals, I expected a lot out of DeAndre Hopkins, including the year that he had the suspension for more than half the season. But DeAndre Hopkins, there's no denying the fact that he's an aging DeAndre Hopkins. He's not the same DeAndre Hopkins that we saw play with 27 different quarterbacks on the Houston Texans team and still be a top 5 wide receiver. You're looking at Calvin Ridley, who has, outside of his rookie year before being suspended for the gambling, you haven't seen him really prove that he can be a number 1 wide receiver. He gives me flavors of Michael Thomas from the New Orleans Saints. You got Treylon Burks, who was great. He filled in greatly, kind of like Tyjae Spears did for the Tennessee Titans. But Treylon Burks doesn't give me confidence outside of a slot wide receiver. Like I said earlier, I feel like with the Tennessee Titans, you have a lot of hope, which is amazing. And that hope could definitely work out at the end of the year. And there's a lot of talented players on this team. Not saying this is one of the worst teams in the NFL. I think by far, I think the Tennessee Titans, even if they come in 4th in the division, will still be talking about, if we can win the last 4 games of the season with a Houston Texans loss in week 17, they can make the playoffs. I'm not saying the Titans are going to be a bad team, but this is what I said opening up the show, is the AFC South is the scariest it's ever been. As Colts fans, Chris, we know Peyton Manning dominated this division for 20 years, and it took the Texans, it took the Jaguars, Blake Bortles and Leonard Fournette, and it took the Texans, Deshaun Watson to even really get in the same conversation as the Indianapolis Colts. This is the first time that every team in the division really has a chance to come out on top, no matter what happens, whether it's injury or whatever. There's not an unbelievable scenario that things could happen, that the Tennessee Titans could finish second or even first in this division. This division is the strongest it's ever been in my entire life, and I'm almost 30 years old.
Yeah, and let's
Okay.
also be real about the fact that we're also speaking from a perspective of teams being 100% healthy.
Yeah.
And so the
Yeah.
thing is, if for some reason health ends up playing a factor, things could move immensely. I mean, we saw it last
course.
year. I mean, we saw it like with the Jags and Nika, I'm not taking shots, but we saw Trevor Lawrence get his ass whooped for weeks on end at the end of the season, and that completely changed the trajectory of the Jags because of the fact that he just got hurt and it was injury after injury, knowing that it's just like he's trying to at some point play through some of these injuries and he just wasn't able to.
Real talk. If Trevor Lawrence does not get hurt and play those multiple games hurt, Texans don't win the division. If they had a reliable quarterback where they can let Trevor rest and have him come back healthy, I don't think Texans win the division last year.
Yeah, and I thought the turning point in that was the game that he got hurt with Cincinnati because he was dealing. Trevor was dealing. Trevor was trading blow for blow. The defense just could not adjust or hold that Cincinnati's backup quarterback, and the defense they fell apart.
Mm-hmm.
Trevor got rolled up by his offensive line. That was horrible. And even Trevor said it himself, he didn't feel right to the end of March.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let me ask
y'all
y'all this then. So where do y'all rank Calvin Ridley at as far as the
AFC South?
Yeah. On each team though, the Colts and Jazz go.
Well, you mean like so where do you rate him in terms of wide receivers among the rest of the wide receivers in the division?
Right.
I'll probably say 7.
7?
I don't know if I could get as disrespectful as 7th. Of course, I think you gotta look at the Tennessee Titans. You gotta look at the Houston Texans. They got Nico Collins. They got Stephon Diggs, who I'd put over Michael Pittman as an Indianapolis Colts fan. So I'm putting Michael Pittman probably at 3. I would say Calvin Ridley's probably the 4th or 5th best wide receiver in our division.
I say Michael Pittman over him. I say D-Hop is over him. I say Tank Dell is over him.
Come on, dog.
I just don't know with the past few years. Like honestly, I like me personally as a Colts fan looking on the outside. I think Calvin Ridley's the number 1 wide receiver and DeAndre is the number 2. I think we're treating DeAndre as the number 1 because we have been all disrespected by DeAndre except for Chef Briggs because he was on the Texans. But I think we all know what DeAndre can be, just like Devontae Adams with the Raiders. We know what Devontae Adams can be. But dependent on the situation, can D-Hop still be with the age, with the situation? I thought D-Hop was going to be great with the Arizona Cardinals. I feel worse about DeAndre Hopkins with Will Levis than I did with Kyler Murray. So I think I would probably put I respect Calvin Ridley right now with age and ability more than I do D-Hop. I'd put D-Hop under Calvin Ridley. I think I would put Calvin Ridley probably at 4 or 5 in our division.
I gotta disagree. I think I maybe put him probably 5 or 6, but I think I put Pittman over him.
Yeah, definitely.
The reason why is because we've seen that Pittman can be consistent even with the issues that they had. Mind you, this was Michael Pittman Jr. the year that they had Matt Ryan, went for 99 receptions for like 998 yards. And that's because of the fact that when Frank Reich completely just screwed the offense, they brought in Jeff Saturday, and they basically went to more of like a New England Patriots offense where you saw they were doing a lot of quick slants. So a lot of the work that he was forced to do was all within 15 yards, to which case you saw exactly what he was able to do. He's been able, and he's proven time and time again that even with him being where he is, he's able to go for 1,000 consistently as a wide receiver 1 because he's been wide receiver 1 since he's been there. So, but the issue that I have in terms of Calvin Ridley is the fact that, and once again, Calvin Ridley's biggest year that he had was as a wide receiver 2 behind Julio freaking Jones.
Yeah.
And
exactly.
after that, we saw a production dip last year. Now, it's not to say that he can't go for 1,000 or he can't do more than 1,000. But the thing is for me is that if we're talking about reliability, with reliability as somebody who you know for a fact is a proven commodity at a wide receiver one, I think that you will have more reliability with somebody like a Michael Pittman than you would with the Calvin Ridley, at least in my personal opinion.
So I'm gonna. This is gonna probably make Trey just get up and quit. I got Stephon, Nico, Michael Pittman, Tank Dell, DeAndre Hopkins. I got Christian Kirk before him.
Oh, you're bugging. Oh, you're bugging. Oh, you're bugging.
Oh, he missed. He almost had 1,000 yards and he missed 5 games last year. If he played 5 games, he probably has a better season. Nika was there. She's a season ticket holder. He was having a better season than Calvin Ridley was if he didn't get hurt. Christian Kirk is a good receiver. The year before they got Calvin Ridley, he proved he was a receiver one.
I feel about the same about Christian Kirk as I do about Treylon Burks. He's a great slot wide receiver. But I don't feel a confidence in Christian Kirk that if I give Christian Kirk the number 1 wide receiver role, as we've seen in the past, Christian Kirk has not been able to perform to that. As Chris was making the point to earlier, we've seen a couple of these wide receivers like Calvin Ridley. His best year was when he was the number 2 behind Julio Jones. A lot of these wide receivers, and I think that's my biggest problem with the Titans roster. I think when you look at the Colts, when you look at the Texans, when you look at the Titans, you're looking at if Trevor Lawrence stays healthy, if CJ stays healthy, if Anthony Richardson, in a perfect world, everybody stays healthy, these teams are competing for number 1. I think the Titans need everybody to stay healthy to even be in the conversation. If even one of these weapons, if Will Levis goes down, forget about it. If DeAndre Hopkins or Treylon Burks, if they start losing pieces of this Titans team in a perfect world, the Titans are competing with everybody like we all want to be healthy. But I think the Titans, I would be willing to bet on the Texans without CJ over the Titans with 100% of their roster. And I think that's my biggest problem with the Titans is that I feel like the Titans need to have their 100% roster, 100% healthy to be in the conversation. But I think at least even the Texans, when it comes to the Colts and Jags, we really need everybody to be 100% to compete with the Texans. But all of us, just like we were hoping about Miss Nika a few years ago, if Trevor Lawrence doesn't stay healthy, if they lose a couple of pieces, the Jaguars all of a sudden aren't a favorite in the AFC anymore. We're hoping CJ doesn't stay healthy. We're hoping Stephon Diggs is a drama queen in the locker room because that would further improve our chances to make the playoffs. But I think that the Titans, if the Titans lost Will Levis week 1, I wouldn't bat an eye because I wouldn't think that would change my ability as a Colts fan to root for my team in the playoffs. If CJ went out week 1, I'd be like, oh shit, now is the time to be excited because Colts fans now have a window, just like when Tom Brady went out for that whole season. We had a window and we took full opportunity of it. But if the Titans lost their best player tomorrow, I wouldn't bat an eye at my ability it wouldn't improve my ability to make the playoffs as a Colts fan.
Yeah. And once again, we also want to make sure that we're saying we hope every team is able to stay healthy.
Of course, yeah.
Not just for bragging rights, but also for you don't want to wish hurt on anybody, right?
Of course, yeah. No, I'm not wishing hurt, but I'm saying
no. I'm not saying
I know that the Colts are going to have a hard time
caveat.
beating CJ Stroud if he's healthy.
We just going to provide that caveat.
Hey, look, nobody in Jacksonville want to see Mac Jones.
Shit, I know y'all all cheers a little bit when Anthony Richardson grabbed his shoulder in week 4.
I hate the Gators, so I was wondering why the Colts drafted him anyway. I'm like, y'all sure y'all want to do that?
Yeah,
because he wasn't well liked by Gator fans down here anyway.
Yeah.
When the Colts signed Shane Steichen, I told everybody on the Texan fan battle, I said, if they get Anthony Richardson, it is going to be scary. That is going to be the worst thing to happen in this division because that dude with that athletic abilities, the playbook is unlimited. Like it's crazy.
Yeah, and honestly, it's just like if we don't sign Shane Steichen as head coach, I don't think they go after Anthony Richardson. Honestly,
I don't think so either.
Yeah, I don't see it. Like that's why it's like I just don't see that. But I mean, that is what it is. So then, with that being said, I think that's pretty much. I mean, that's pretty much it as far as what we've covered. Dallas, before we go ahead and we go, tell the people about where they can find you and what you got coming up.
So mostly you can find me over on YouTube, just like you're hopefully watching this episode tonight, at the Huddle Chat Sports Show. You can also find me on Facebook and Twitter at the Huddle Chat as well. As Chris was talking, I'm a displaced Colts fan, as I'm sure probably the majority of fans are. Not everybody is as lucky to live in the same place that their team plays in. And being a Colts fan, they don't talk about the Colts on ESPN or anything as much as I'd like to. So that was the reason I started my show. Because for people like us, Ms. Nika, Chef Briggs, y'all know, tighten up, man, like they don't be talking about us as much as we would like to. I get sick and tired of hearing ESPN First Take talk about LeBron James, talk about the Dallas Cowboys. I want to hear what Tony Pollard is going to be looking like for the Tennessee Titans this year. So I started my show mostly because I feel like there are so many different teams that feel like their team does not get the representation that they should get. I want to talk about mostly those teams and those players and those storylines that don't get the attention that they should. Everybody's talking about Michael Jordan versus LeBron James. Everybody's talking about what Stephen Curry did last week. But there's a lot of fans of a lot of teams, of a lot of players that don't get talked about. And that's really what we focus on majorly on the Huddle Chat Sports Network. I do all sports throughout the entire year, but like I said, my main focus is fantasy football. That's where I help you make your money, man. I help you hoist the trophy over those other idiots in your fantasy football league, give you that information that they may not be paying attention to, and really help you get that leg up just by a couple simple, 7-minute videos throughout the week that you can watch. So like I said, man, you can make sure you check me out over on YouTube at the Huddle Chat Sports, and you can check me out on Facebook and on X, formerly known as Twitter, at the Huddle Chat as well.
Appreciate it. All right. And then in the meantime, before we go, people, let them know exactly where they can find you, starting with you, Miss Nika.
You can find me on Twitter, I don't call it X, at Miss Nika 989, and you can find my podcast with my co-host Shayla at First and Teal, and our podcast can be found on Spotify, Apple, Amazon, Facebook, and Instagram.
All right, thank you for that. Trey, where can the people find you?
Man, I'm just a fan. I'm not too much in podcasts. I come on every now and then. So I mean, I'll be around on Twitter, but I ain't got nothing to share, y'all.
Yeah, where they can find you on Twitter?
Traysky1. I meant Traysky Trade. That's
Traysky Trade. Okay.
Yes, sir.
All right. Briggs?
Yeah, you can find me Wednesday nights at 8 p.m. Central, the Texans fan battle, where we do the same thing like we did here, but we just talk Texans. Also, check out fanbattlesports.com. Just drop a new article about the Texans, about C.J. Stroud. Is he being overhyped? So make sure you check that out. Oh, and A1 Day 1 Texans everywhere on social media.
All right. And you can find me at CJ Colts fan on Twitter. We don't call it X. But yeah, make sure that you tune in. You can also find me on the Horseshoe Mob podcast. We'll be returning this week prior to me going to training camp this week. So yeah, so make sure that you check that out.
Chris, before we wrap up, we got to announce our winner for the contest.
Yes, the winner for the contest, I believe it was for the jersey. I wasn't able to enter, so whoever wins, if you're a Colts fan, I would appreciate it if you just give me that alley-oop and slam dunk. But go ahead, Briggs. In the meantime, go ahead and pick.
All right, here we go. Winner gets a free jersey of their choosing, except for the Titans.
Brandon Williams.
There we go.
Okay. Brandon, if you are watching, make sure that you go ahead and you DM us. I believe they DM you on Twitter or Facebook. So that
I will be reaching out to him as well. So
yep, and he'll be reaching out as well. But once again, congratulations to Brandon Williams. And thank you for tuning in. We look forward to speaking to you guys. I believe it's for Colts this week is training camp. I think Texans training camp started last week, right?
Yes, sir.
And then when do the Jags and Titans report?
This week.
On Tuesday.
Tuesday. All right. So yeah. So good luck with training camp, everybody. And as always, you please remember. I know we haven't heard this one in a while, but Sam loves Jalen Ramsey, and we'll see
Sit
you
back
next.
in your saddle and get ready for the fan battle.